I am thrilled to have you on the show. I can't wait to dive into your book. But before we do that, Belisa, please tell folks your journey.
Oh, well, it's been a long and winding one to get me to be here. I can't say that I went to college saying, hey, I want to teach people how to breathe, or even having as much knowledge of anatomy that I found that I've needed. So my background is actually in psychology, and specifically in child psychology. So I spent a lot of time doing IQ testing and learning about children and how they learn and how to teach them. So that has helped tremendously in getting me to be able to explain and to be able to teach people how to breathe, believe it or not. But that's where I started out. And then as I looked at the effect of stress on folks and how badly they were handling their stress and how few tools they had, that sent me over to look at breathing. I noticed that people in general were breathing in a way that didn't really make sense. And most of us breathe in a way, like you mentioned, that's anatomically incongruous, that biomechanically is really unsound, that pretty much just makes no sense given how we're designed, and that there's incredibly bad repercussions throughout our bodies and our brains and our soul when we breathe the wrong way. And that's what brought me to be able to teach and to set up the breathing class, and now work specifically with teaching people how to breathe.
I love this, and we're going to dive into this. So talk to me about breathing. Being from the East Coast and living literally 10 minutes outside of Manhattan growing up here, and I tell my patients this all the time, we have become, over time, short, shallow breathers. And we're not breathing properly. So tell me how this works. Let's start from the beginning. How is it that your method in 14 days is going to improve people's mental and physical health?
Well, what happens is the first thing you have to do is understand the way your body is designed to breathe. So there's steps. It's funny because you can tell someone to take a belly breath, and usually they might try to take a belly breath, and they don't want to, because who wants a belly? I mean, we work, really hard to keep the belly, in place and not showing. So in general, just saying take a belly breath isn't going to work. Folks, you need to make sure that people understand or are given the right information, and give them a lot of information about anatomy, about why the breath has changed, about the mechanics of breathing. Just simply saying take a belly breath isn't going to work. So the way I started teaching is showing people how our bodies as a machine are meant to work, and really in a very straightforward way. Here's a piston, here's just all these different parts that should be working together. Now let's take your body and see, is it working the way? Are you using it the way it was set up? Plain and simple. So are you using your major breathing muscle, which everyone knows is the diaphragm? Are you using that to breathe? And you wouldn't believe how many people either don't know if they're using their diaphragm, or they say they are, but they're absolutely not. So actually recognizing that first is a very important step. And then realizing if you're not using your diaphragm, what muscles are you using, and how is that impacting your health? And some of the things that can happen if you're not breathing well is you're going to have trouble going to sleep. You're going to be breathing in a short, shallow way because you have no choice. You might have lower back pain because your diaphragm is attached to your spine. You might have digestive problems because your diaphragm also helps digestion. It helps what's called peristalsis. So all these things that most people have at least one or two of, or maybe all of, are really very intimately tied to the breathing in an anatomical way, not in a woo-woo way. I love my breathing that has to do with meditation and more things that have to do with energy and chakras and things like that. But where I start from is really anatomy. Are we breathing the right way? So I know that's a long-winded answer to the beginning of your question, but that's how we start looking at things as far as the breath.
And that's perfect, because that is exactly what I see in my chiropractic practice. And there are times when I feel that I can adjust a person's spine every day, and they're still not going to get the maximal improvement because their breathing mechanism is so distorted.
Yes, so if you can have a great adjustment,
Yep.
Like you said, and then continue to breathe well, the adjustment's going to stay for a lot longer. It's going to stick for a lot longer, for sure.
For sure. But most times, most people are not seeing the chiropractor, and they're not, what's the word? Mindful. They're not mindful of their breathing. And this is one of the things that I think that you've done in the book that is a big deal, and that's what everybody's going to have an individual experience in reading the book and then applying it. But for me, it was mindful of our breathing. So, and that's not woo-woo. That was actually what you were exactly talking about. That was the anatomical focus that is needed to help you correct these breathing issues. Talk to me about why 14 days? Why can't we correct this in one session?
Well, I think 14 days is still pretty challenging, but I do recognize that people might want to have it fixed faster, and it's because you actually have to fix it yourself. It can't be like an adjustment. It has to be something that you spend some effort doing. And you think about it. I mean, I have people that are frustrated. They're saying, I'm on day 7. When is this going to happen? And I say, well, you've been breathing this way probably since you're 6 or 7 years old. Maybe if you're lucky, 8 or 9 is when your breathing starts to get dysfunctional. So depending on how old you are, you've got a decade of bad habit, or maybe 2 decades of bad habit. So reorganizing your breathing after you've taken millions and millions of breaths that have been, they've gotten you through the day, but they certainly haven't been optimal, is going to take a little while. So it does take at least 14 days. I've had people that it's been much shorter, because once you understand what you're doing wrong, that's what's been missing, is that in the past you're told just breathe, or breathe into your diaphragm, which is crazy because you can't breathe into your diaphragm. So there's all this misunderstanding about breathing and respiration. So once you're given the information and not, and actually treated like an intelligent person, here is why this isn't working. Here's what you can do about it. Here are the steps to take. Here are the muscles you were using, and here are the muscles that you should be using. It really is much easier to get things done right.
Yeah, it's really, really important. And you wrote that oxygen is the sustenance in a way that food can never be. And to me, that's so simple, but yet it's really profound.
With energy, we keep thinking about food, but our primary way of getting energy is through our breath. So that's why taking the deep breath or doing breathing exercises, people will say, oh, I feel like I've got energy. I feel so energetic. I feel like I've, somehow fed myself. And it's sustenance for sure.
Absolutely. And talk about the flip side of that is when people feel crummy.
Well, there's something called air hunger. It's interesting as we talk about oxygen as sustenance, is that the opposite of that is a shallow, inefficient breath that ends up, with the repercussions through your body that are absolutely terrible, from making your pH either too acidic or too alkaline, to affecting your adrenals that are trying to help your system balance itself, to just having this sensation, like I said, that's called air hunger, of not being able to take a deep breath in and not knowing why that's going on.
Yeah, it's fascinating, the some of the little side notes. Dr. Arthur Guyton. I mean, this is Guyton we're talking about, folks. This man wrote the book, and what he said was proper breathing nourishes the cells of the body with oxygen and optimizes the functioning of the body on all levels. This is huge, huge. And we just, it's something that we don't give 0.5% of any mindfulness to. So it's no wonder the breathing has morphed into this. So talk to me about what happens when we cut that. Talk to me about some of the symptoms that people will actually feel with poor breathing mechanics.
One of my, I don't like to say favorites, but one of my favorites is anxiety. And, especially with women, there are more breathing pattern dysfunctions in women, and there's a higher rate of anxiety disorders in women. So that's not something I think that's happened by chance. The way you breathe is really a mechanism to control your nervous system. So lavender candles, great music, all kinds of other wonderful things that help you relax are great. But the mechanism, the actual knobs and levers that your nervous system goes to see how it should be responding or how your brain and body should be feeling is your breath. So to me, anxiety and stress, how we experience it, how we control it, is directly related to how we're breathing. So if you learn how to breathe to control that, it just makes life so much easier.
Absolutely. One of the things that you wrote that I loved was breathing exercises can energize you better than a Red Bull and get you to sleep faster than an Ambien.
Neither Red Bull nor, the pharmaceutical that works with Ambien has come out to get me yet. I'm sure they might. But it's true, is that we're taking all these things either to wake us up or to put us to bed, to get us to go to sleep. I mean, we spend days, and I know that, I've done this myself and, try not to, is that getting to sleep is really hard nowadays, and waking up and performing the way we want to all day long is really hard. So I don't blame anyone for, their double espresso, maybe the second double espresso throughout the day, or having to take a sleep medication, because we live in a world where being productive and staying on time is really important. However, using the breathing to help with both those things, to wake up and to go to sleep, can be really efficient.
It is. Let's start. And first of all, you're not saying you're going to take away my double espresso. That's correct, right?
No.
Okay, just checking. All right, cool. All right, so let's start at the beginning, and this is what I like and found very unique about what you're doing. So you're talking about let's measure what's going on with you. So you have a scale that you do, and you look at. Talk to people about that. Let me stop talking. I'm excited, so I'm talking.
Sure.
I'm talking with my hand. I'm talking with my hands. Nobody can see that. So go ahead, Belisa.
So one of the things I looked at is why are we not paying attention to the breath? And one of the reasons is that we have this idea that it's just breathe. We have songs that are just breathe. We keep saying, take a deep breath in and exhale and everything should be fine. And the fact is that because we can't measure it unless we're going to a pulmonary clinic and getting spirometry measures done, we just